I'm going to show you how I made my giant flower staff for Renfaire. So I made a giant rose, and the first thing I did was cut out the shape of the petal on some cardboard. Maybe mark out the size of your foam first, unlike what I did. So I did mark it out and make it the right size. So this is EVA foam that I'm using. I'm using 2mm, and this one is 17.5 by 12 inches. This foam came in a pack of 5 on Amazon. I ended up getting 3 of this size, and then I also got 2 other size foams because I ended up making 3 different size petals, which I'll show you the other sizes I got in a minute, but this is the size I used for the medium size petals. But once you have your template of cardboard of the petal shape you want, I just put it on my cutting board and a rotary cutter, and then I cut all 15 of the sheets out, so I had 15 of this size petal. And then I took scissors to the tops of them to add little divots and marks to make them more natural looking. So you do need a heat gun to shape your petals, and then I used the 6-inch acrylic globe thing that's like a light cover or something that I got on Amazon. To shape my petals, I first start by heating it all up and then crinkling it up to give it more of a natural texture, which you won't have all the crinkles by the end of your shaping. I think it helps a little bit. And then you can also fold it so you have creases down the middle and sides, which this was still one of my first petals, and I did get more of the hang of it as I went on. So to get the curl at the edge of your roses, you're just going to take your heat gun to the very end and then just roll it into itself like this, and this is going to be the outside of the petals that you're rolling in, if you know what I mean. And then to get more of the shape of the petal, you turn it back around, add heat to the middle, and then put it over that little ball thing, and that will give you more of that rounded shape for your petal. But the foam's really forgiving, especially with the heat gun, so you can play around with it. If you make any nail marks or things you don't like, you can put the heat gun on it, and it does take them away pretty much. Once it cools down, you can reheat it and shape again if you need to. But the more you work it and stretch it, the more flimsy it will be, so just be mindful of that. You do have to be a little bit careful because I did rip a couple of them pulling on it, right here. But I still use this one. It was on the inside anyway, so you weren't gonna see that part of it anyway. And then I did rip a couple more where I took just a big chunk out of a couple of the tops, but I think they actually turned out really cute like that still, so it was fine. And this one was a little torn, but they're roses, they're natural, they might be torn in nature too, so it's fine. That was my first test run at the painting, and this was my second. I like this one a little better, but I wanted to test it out and see how it felt after painting because I did use this roof patch mixed with acrylic paint to paint them. I don't know if you have to use a roof patch, probably not. It's just a little thicker and might dry just a little bit sturdier, and it does have waterproofing, but I don't know how much it would with how much acrylic paint I mixed with it. It's a little pricey, but it's just up to you if you want to use it or not. For painting, I had 3 different shades of pink, and I did the darker color on top and then went with the base color and then the lightest color and just stroked it up with a paintbrush like shown here. And then I also took a white iridescent paint with a smaller paintbrush and just took it, stroked it up in a couple spots along both sides of the petals just to add a little shimmer and shine to them. But painting them is completely optional. You can stop after you shape them if you have the color you want, and you don't have to paint them. But here is the second size I used. It was 9 by 12, 2mm EVA foam. This came in a pack of 15. I ended up only doing 10 of the smaller roses, and then I did have to use those last couple later. I'll show you. But here is a couple of the petals that I ripped off the tops, but again, I think they still look cute, so it's okay if you mess up. But I just shaped these the same way that I shaped the bigger ones. I just did the ball thing more towards the bottom. Also, when you're doing the curl, if you want more of a curl or a bend, the more you hold the heat gun there, it will start curling into itself. So that also is helpful, making the curls and bends and stuff. So the last foam size I got was 35.4 by 19.7. It's a very big piece of foam. It did not come the smoothest, so if you need it flat and smooth for something, maybe not the best option, but we didn't. It's gonna come out a little bit with the heat gun, but we don't need it super smooth, so it was fine. But I took the template for the medium petal and set it on there and just cut it around there, but bigger, and then I used that one that was cut out to cut out the rest. I just took the back of a paintbrush to trace and indent on the foam where to cut, and then cut them out. Also, this foam came in a pack of 5, and I was able to make 2 petals per sheet, Just make sure you have it like angled correctly and you can do 2 of them. So I was able to make 10 of the large petals. In total, we had 10 large, 15 medium, and 10 small. Then I did drop one of the petals on the garage floor, and this stuff picks up things like crazy, but you can use tape to like stick on there and take off the debris and hairs and stuff, especially before you paint, even if there's small stuff on there. Just use some painter's tape to take like the little dust and hairs off. But yeah, painting these took forever, and I do wish I would have painted the light part a little higher just so you could see it more, because once they're all on there, you're really not going to see too much of the lightness at the bottom there, except the ones on the very outside. So I probably spent way more time than I needed to painting these, but it's fine. So for the inner structure of the flower, I got 8-inch foam ball and then this 1/2-inch PVC pipe. Just got whatever that length was, because me and my friend were making one, so we just cut it in half. And then I got this drill attachment at Lowe's that cuts holes in wood, but it worked really well to cut a hole in our foam ball. You do need to get the attachment that's over a 1/2 inch, because the 1/2 inch size is the measurement of the inside of the PVC pipe, not the outside. So measure the outside of the pole for your hole size, but then you add a lot of hot glue and stick your pole in there. Okay, for the very inside of the rose, I did take up one of the medium-sized petals. It probably didn't need to be medium, probably a small one would have worked because I did cut it down. But I just rolled it into itself like this, and once I had the general shape, I curled the outside, and I also took one of the small sheets, rolled it up, and stuck it inside there so there wouldn't be like a big gap or anything. And then I added little cuts to the bottom so it would have like a spot to glue down, and then just hot glued it to the top of the ball. But now it's time to add the petals. I was just winging it here. I wasn't really sure the best way to add them, but here's how I did it. For the top view, I did make more cuts at the bottom just so it would lay better, and here is a friendly little spider I saw up there. But yeah, you just start adding the petals on. I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, but I am not good at explaining things. But to glue down your petals, I first found the placement and then flipped it down like that, added some glue, and then held it there. You're going to do just a lot of sitting there and holding your glue for this. But once I had the base down, then I went to the edges, glued the edges down, and then I went back to the bottom and glued the very bottom down. And then once those are dry, I just go up the petal little by little and glue down the edges as much as I want them to go in, or up, I guess, where you want it to stay. It's really just eyeballing it, seeing how you like it, seeing how it's looking. So I got all 10 of the smaller petals down. This was the medium-sized petals I started adding. Added more curve on some of the petals. You can heat them when they're painted. You just have to be careful and not have the heat on it too long or too hot, or you will discolor your paint, or it may bubble up, and then it can crease too if you bend it too much. So for placement for the petals, I had 2 little just like fake roses, just kind of for reference to look at, but I have drawn roses and just kind of knew how they worked, but I'll try my best to show you guys. So I started placing one on one side and then one on the opposite side, and then opposite of those have one on the left, one on the right. And once you have like your first row done, you just start placing the next petals in between the gaps. So where there's like a space or gap, that's where the middle of the next petal will kind of be. As you go down, just eyeball it. Just see where it looks okay, because you're gonna have more gaps and more spaces that it looks like it might need a petal there. So just go by how it's looking, I guess. But again, you start with the gluing the smaller petals to the top, and then each row you'll slowly go down the ball as your petals get bigger and eventually have it all covered. But I hadn't painted my big petals yet once I had the small and medium on, so I went ahead and painted those. So much painting. But again, you don't have to paint them, and you could also spray paint instead if you wanted. So at this point, this is how it was looking, and I wasn't liking it. I thought that the petals needed to curve down more, but I was wrong. I didn't like how that looked, so I did curve them back up, and I liked it a lot better after that. Okay, so for the leaves, I got a green EVA foam, and I started by cutting 6 leaves out. I just looked at the fake flower petals just to kind of see how they were shaped. But this EVA foam is also 2mm, and I got the size 17.5 by 12. That came with the 5 sheets. For shaping, I just kind of crinkled them, and I added a little bit of curve to them as well. Then for painting, I also did where it's a little darker at the top and a little lighter at the bottom, and then the paint strokes really help it to look more real-ish, I guess, which I would recommend this type of paintbrush to paint these. And then I ended up making 4 more small petals with those last sheets that I had, because I ran out of the big petals and there were just some spaces that needed more. At the bottom there, here was me testing how it looked. Okay, so for the actual staff part, we got 1-inch PVC pipe from Lowe's. They only had, I think it was the 10-foot ones. I got them in my car though, but we just cut those down to the size that we needed, and then I took a heat gun to mine, and just be careful, but you're just gonna heat it up and then bend it. But I just wanted some like natural curves and things into it so it wasn't super straight. So I just started bending it in spots and just seeing how it looked, and this is what I ended up with. And then we wrapped the pipe in hockey stick tape. This is the Howie's brand on Amazon. 1 roll was enough per pole, and it just worked really great to cover the pole up. You can stop there with your pole, that is good too. But I had this ribbon that I had a different idea for, but I ended up really liking how it looked over the whole staff, so I covered my entire staff with the ribbon and covered the hockey tape. And I just hot glued the very top and then tightly wrapped it down, and with the hockey tape it has a little bit of a grip, so I didn't need to hot glue it like down the pole until I got to the very bottom. But then I have the problem of the leaves I painted did not match the color of the pole anymore, so I did repaint them so they would match. And the color of the ribbon actually matched perfectly to my outfit, so it worked out really well. Ended up doing only 4 of the big leaves on the bottom, and then I made a little thing at the bottom there with 4 more leaves that would like cover all the gaps and things, and then I used the other 2 leaves for leaves on my stem. And then the idea I had originally with the ribbon is that I wanted to wrap it loosely around the pole so I could add butterflies on it to hand out for my trinkets. So I ended up taking that ribbon, folding it in half, hot gluing it to the top, and then like lightly wrapping it down like this, if you can see where it's at. So it has some like loose pieces where the clips and butterflies can attach to. But yeah, I use those little butterflies for my trinkets, so when people come up, I just clip them off and hand it to them. I thought that was a really cute idea. Then I wanted my staff to jingle when you move it, so I added some bells on some string, little ones, big ones, and just wrapped it around like that and tied it. So for the bottom of the poles, when we bought the PVC pipe, we also bought like a plastic PVC pipe cap that we had on the bottom and taped over. But I also got these like rubber end caps. I got the 2-inch ones. They were a little big, but I just put that on over the plastic cap and then wrapped the green back around it. But I thought the rubber would be a little bit better for like ground and stuff. So we were gonna originally glue our flowers down to the poles, but then we thought it probably wouldn't fit in the car like that. So we did make them detachable. We just taped around the smaller pole there so it would fit snugly into the bigger pole, but still easily enough to take it on and off. Which is not in this video, but I did tie a green string to that top leaf there so I could hide a little green fan if I needed to like attach a fan there for hot days. But it wasn't hot the day we went, so I didn't have it on there. And here's all my little trinket butterfly clips that I put on there. I had a gap there for my hand, and I didn't have them go like too low either, but I got rid of them very fast. There was a lot of trinket traders that day, and we got stopped a lot with our flowers. But yeah, that is how I made my giant rose flower staff. It was a hit at Renfaire. We got stopped so much with our flowers. My friend made a daisy, which I'm going to make a separate video on how we made that one. But we got so many compliments on these. Everyone was so nice, and we got stopped a lot to take pictures with people. It was a lot of fun. So these were like a little heavy, but they really weren't too bad. You can just carry it with one hand, which we did a lot, 2 hands over the shoulder. But yeah, they really weren't too bad carrying around. They're really like good to hold on to while you're standing. The only annoying part was sitting down with them and trying to figure out where to put them or hold them like that. But it was fine. And you do need a friend to go with you if you do need to use the bathroom while you're at fair, because you will need someone to hold your flower, unless you find a very nice fair goer that will help you out. Anyway, so if you did want to make one of these yourselves, I did put together an Amazon list on my storefront with all the supplies you would need to make this rose and the daisy as well. But yeah, we thought of this idea last year to be flower fairies and make the flower staffs, and I always wait till last minute to do anything. But we got it done, and I'm so happy with how our flower fairy looks turned out. I love them so much. If you do make your own giant flower, please tag me in it. I would love to see how they turn out. And if you have any questions about making them, just let me know. I can try my best to answer. Okay, bye!